You guys? That was a rough one. Well, so this summer, you might remember that we did a whole big series on the book of Ecclesiastes, which I just loved. From the hevel to the grasshopper, that book is just so on point. But there was one particular message that it seemed like had a lot of resonance with you guys, and that was the one on enjoying life. Do you remember that? That seemed to strike a chord with many people, just that there's a place in this world where we just need to go out and be happy. This morning, we're going to take a look at Psalm 126, which is the first thing that Bob read. And Psalm 126 strikes a similar note of joy. But I want to give you the context of it first. So if you look at the Psalms, how many Psalms are there, you guys? Do you know? 150. And the way it's organized is the first two Psalms are the introduction. And Psalms 1 and 2 are the introduction to the whole thing. And then the last five are the conclusion to the whole set. Psalm 146, 47, 48, 49, 150. That's the end. And so between these, the kind of the two-book intro and the five-book conclusion, in the middle there, you have five chunks. We call them books. There are five books in the Psalter of the Psalms. And within each book, there is also kind of sub-organization. And in the fifth book, the last chunk of the Psalms, there is a section that we call the Psalms of, does anybody know? Ascent. The Psalms of Ascent or the Songs of Ascent. And ascent as in like climbing, going higher, going up something. And in this Psalms of Ascent, in this particular thing, they were used when they would go somewhere in particular, sometime in particular. Do you know what the Songs of Ascent were for? Where they're going? They're going to Jerusalem. Okay, Jerusalem's up a mountain. Not a very big mountain, but it's a mountain nevertheless, right? So you always go up to Jerusalem. And they would sing the songs of ascent as they were climbing up to Jerusalem, but usually it was really at a particular festival. Anybody know the festival that the songs of ascent were primarily used for? It's the Festival of Booths, B-O-O-T-H-S, a booth. And when you hear the word booth, what you probably should think of is a tent, okay? So the Festival of Booths were when the Israelites would reenact essentially the time in the wilderness. There was this 40-year period where everybody lived in tents for a long, long time. And so basically there's this divinely ordained, nationally recognized, week-long camping trip. And they go up to Jerusalem, they would live in booths, and as you can imagine, when they're going up, commemorating this, the time in the wilderness was a mixed story. It was difficult. It was hard for 40 years to be marching around in the sand, but it was also a time of unbelievable, miraculous provision, right? And so these songs of ascent, they would sing to themselves. Sometimes, some of the songs in this little collection were songs of lament because life is hard and we're in the desert. But sometimes they're songs of praise because God is producing life for us in the desert. And Psalm 126 fits right into there. It's a song, ultimately, it's a song of praise, although there is an asterisk because it's praise, it's life, it's provision, but it's provision in a desert, okay? So I'm going to read it again to you. Bob crushed it, but I'm going to read it again now that we've talked a little bit about what it is. And I just want you to notice the tags for praise, right? You're going to see laughter and gladness and joy, 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 all kinds of good stuff in here. And by the way, that verse 0, Psalm 126, verse 0, is actually part of the text. That's how we know that it's a song of ascent, okay? So here's how it goes. Psalm 126, a song of ascents. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with shouts of joy. They said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like streams in the Negeb. Those who sow in tears will reap with shouts of joy. He who goes out weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, bringing his sheaves with him. This is a poem, it's a song, it's an emotional thing, and there's something maybe a little bit indecent about autopsying a psalm, about like treating it scientifically, but we're going to do that anyway. And then we're going to sew it back together. But I want to take it apart and analyze it so that once we understand really what's going on there, it might actually become more fruitful for you, more useful for you if you understand what's going on. So I want you to notice it's basically organized around a memory, a request, and an expectation. Those would be helpful categories to kind of hang on to. So the song begins with a memory. And by the way, it's a really, really happy memory. It's where he says, when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter and our tongue with shouts of joy. Have you ever been delusionally happy? Have you ever laughed? We laugh all the time when things are funny. But have you ever laughed from sheer happiness? Right? Sometimes it's relief. You just laugh. You're just overwhelmed with joy. That's what he's describing here. It's not that it was funny. Brian, I feel like I want to call on you because you're sitting here like this. Brian, did you have a question? It's good. You doing all right? Okay. All right. That's good. Just everybody sit here like this. We'll just honor Brian for the rest of the night. Okay? What this author is remembering is just the giddiness, the pleasure, the joy that came from some relief that he had been through, right? And by the way, it wasn't only experienced, it was noticed, it was observed, right? It says, they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad. Their joy was so great. Whatever the Lord had already done, other people saw it, they noticed it, and there was a conversation about it. This reminds me of the concept. It really comes out of 2 Samuel, like chapters 4 to 7, the idea of an Ebenezer stone. Is that a familiar idea to you? Basically what the Israelites did in that moment was God had provided this great rescue for them, and they wanted to remember it. This happened, and it happened here, and they wanted others to be curious about it. And so they take a big rock, and they set it up on end in an unnatural way that it would never come. They basically are building a monument so as to say, right here, he did it, and we remember it. We don't want to forget it. Right? And it's a good practice in your life to set up Ebenezer stones, to remember when the Lord was faithful. In 30-something years of marriage and ministry, Kelly and I have set up a lot of Ebenezer stones. There's a lot of moments, and we need those because sometimes life is hard, and we need to remember his faithfulness. As I was thinking about this, and I thought, of all the Ebenezer stones, is there one that I might want to share with you? And one thing, I'm going to give you a quick story. It may not be that quick. But I'm going to tell you a story. One of the most remarkable things that I've ever experienced from the Lord directly, Kelly and I were on staff with Campus Crusade for Christ for 20 years before we came here. And what that means is we've spent our entire life raising support. We've had a team of partners that give us money every month so that we can be on campus and doing evangelism and discipleship. And that's lovely and it's wonderful and God has provided for us, but it can also be really difficult. And one particular summer, as we sat down to work, to figure out our support, we just needed to raise, you guys, so much money. We had been living poor for a long time, and I was just kind of overcome with a sense of, like, I need to be a better provider for my family. We need to save them for retirement. Our kids are going to graduate, debt up to their eyeballs. And we just figured we need to raise a ton of money. We sat down, we did all the math, and the answer is we needed to raise $2,200 in new monthly support. This is so much money. It's just so much money. And I was despairing, like, we're dead. This is over. Like, this game has come to an end. But I got to the point where I was like, okay, Lord, like, what do you care? Like, you can do anything. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter what the number is. You'll do it. And I kind of got there. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's make some phone calls. Let's tell some stories. Let's invite people to participate and trust him. And then my wife walks into the room. And I distinctly remember I was in my living room, sitting on my couch, and Kelly walks in and says, Tim, I just calculated our support. And we do a thing called solid monthly support. People pledge this, but they're actually giving this, and you pack it all down to see what the reality is, and people drop your team. And she's like, we're actually $1,200 behind where we thought we were. So suddenly I didn't need to raise $2,200 monthly. I needed to raise $3,400 monthly. So, we're dead. I just despair, like there's no hope. And then I rallied, and I'm like, okay, Lord, if you can raise $2,200, you can raise $3,400. But I said, but I can't. And here's what I need. 1 week from today, I need that $1,200 crossed off the list. Like in 1 week, would you provide $1,200 in new monthly support, and then we'll worry about the $2,200. So we get to work, and I'm making phone calls and meeting with people and telling the story about what God's doing through Penn State Crew. And 7 days later, it's Monday night, I would make phone calls from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. to invite people to meet and join our team. And it's 8:50 on Monday night, 10 minutes before the clock strikes 9. And we had raised $800 in new monthly support, which was a ton of money. It was a blitz week. And in any case, it's stupid, and God doesn't owe us anything, right? He doesn't owe me $1,200. He's obligated to do nothing, and I'm grateful for all that he's done, and I'm kind of repenting of this expectation. And it's 10 till 9, and I just kind of want to stop. But I said that I would finish the game. And so I thought about this, and I realized I had a friend, Paul, who had recently graduated from a ministry, and Paul just got a job in San Francisco on the West Coast, where it's 3 hours earlier. And so I will call Paul Seitz, and I'll just say, hey, just invite him. He knows all about Penn State Crew. He was part of our ministry, and asked me if he wants to join the team. I called Paul. I don't tell him we need to raise $3,400. I don't tell him about $1,200. I don't tell him that we're $800 into this $1,200 mini goal. I just ask him if he'd be interested in joining the team with Penn State Crew. And Paul says to me, he says, Tim, I love my time in Crew. It totally changed my life. I'd love to join your team. I'll come on your team for $400 a month. And you guys, it was like when Peter catches all these fish in this net. Right? You remember when Peter catches this massive thing of fish, and when his response was like, whoa, get away from me. Like, I'm a sinful man. Like, what are you doing? You guys, it was to the penny, to the minute. And God provided exactly what we needed. Not just that we needed, but what I needed to know that he was involved in my life, that he cared, that he saw the things that distressed me. To the penny, to the minute. I swear to you that story is true. And then from that, it took us a week to raise $1,200, and it took us 9 weeks to raise the other $22. And that summer, over 10 weeks, we raised $3,400 in new monthly support, and it completely changed our lives because suddenly we weren't poor anymore. We had the resources to go do the job that the Lord had called us to do. And I think about that all the time. I remember his faithfulness. I remember my hopelessness. And there's been numerous times that I have had to be like, that's right. It's all true. And you are in this. I remember when my mouth was full of laughter. And you need to remember too. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad. So, there's a memory. But then, look at verse 4. Verse 4 contains the request. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like the streams in the Negeb. Okay? Now, what this means is that things aren't great anymore, right? Something bad has happened. We're now back in the desert. We remember when things were amazing, but we're also experiencing things right now. Now, when he says he's in this desert, right, he says, we remember he restored us. Remember that was great. But the restoration request specifically is like streams in the Negeb. The Negeb, or the Negev, depending on kind of how it gets translated, is a desert. And what he's saying we're in the desert, and what we want is streams. Now, generally speaking, there aren't streams in the desert. It's a desert. There's not a lot of water. But you may have seen, different times, you may have seen a desert bloom. There are these different moments where the rains come, and the desert gets watered, and the flowers bloom. In fact, show us this here. Throw up the, have you guys seen pictures like this? These kind of things will happen. These are deserts. These are sand, right? So you'll see it sometimes in Southern California. They have these massive super blooms. Different deserts around the world, including in Israel. The rains come, and there's this sudden abundance of water and life. This is what he's saying. He's like, we remember the flowers, but we're living in the sand. Would you do it again? Would you do it again? There's a memory. There's a request. But here's what I want you to notice. There's also an expectation. Look at verse 5. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. He who goes out weeping, bearing seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, bringing his sheaves with him. It's not just a request, it's an expectation. It is a confident belief in what the future holds. Lord, you will bring the rains, and there will be a harvest. The rains might literally be our tears, but the tears are going to produce joy. I remember you used to have a stole. Maybe you still have it, right? It says, we who sow in tears will reap with joy, right? This is that exact image here, that there will be a joyful harvest coming, okay? So that's what the song is about. It's a memory, it's a request, and it's an expectation. But here's what I think this means for us. Here's what I want you to think about in your own life as you apply this in your own world. The person who wrote this song is going through something difficult. You might be, certainly some of you are going through something difficult. He's in the desert, you might be in the desert. Maybe you just got out of it, but maybe you're in it right now. There's something terrible. He wants rescue. You want rescue. We all seek restoration. And what you're invited to do in the midst of it, there's two things. Here you are. You're in the desert. There's two things that you need to do. And this would be a really just good habit to remember. This is how life works. This is what you need to do. First thing you do is you remember God's faithfulness. Consciously call it to mind. I remember when our mouths were full of laughter. You did great things for us, and we were so happy. The word for this is gratitude. There's something really healthy, really helpful about cultivating gratitude. Gratitude is one of the two great anchors of our lives. You need to be grateful, not only because God deserves your praise and adoration and thanks, but you need to be grateful because it's nourishing, because it's healing for you, right? It is good to remember and declare what he has done. But gratitude for the past is not sufficient. It will not get you through the day. You need not only gratitude, but you need this second thing as well. What you need, even more than gratitude, is hope. Gratitude looks to the past. Hope looks to the future. And you need an expectation of what he will do. In fact, I think that the chief virtue of gratitude itself is that it gives us hope. The fuel for hope is gratitude. Our happy memory of what he has done is the thing that shapes our expectation of what he will do. So you could imagine yourself as a telephone pole. You're tall, but you're not that sturdy, and you need these two lines coming out from you, okay? You're at risk of being blown over. The first line that comes off of you is gratitude. It anchors you to your own past. It reminds you of what God has already done, his mercy, his kindness, that time that he came through to you. Your version of the Paul Seitz story, when he came through, was your provision. You need that. And the second line races into your future, and it is hope. It's your hope that what he has done once, he will do again. And you have got to have both of these. You need to have the belief, the expectation that the best things lie ahead. Infinite joy, increasing joy is waiting for you. So gratitude produces hope for the future. But then what ends up happening is that future hope, it spills back into present pain to make this moment more bearable. And this is simply the way our lives work, right? This short little psalm is teaching us this paradigm. This is how it works. The divine strategy for making it through life in a broken world is that we anchor ourselves in gratitude for the past. We anchor ourselves in hope for the future, knowing that gratitude produces hope, and then hope spills back into the present to ease the pain of this difficult moment. As you look back to God's past faithfulness, and we remember the joy that comes from it, the laughter that he produced. I need to remember when God gave this amazing job to Silas to work with Masterpiece Alliance, that he is so well suited for. It is such a gift. I need to remember that Max survived the motorcycle accident that I wasn't sure he was going to survive. I need to remember Paul said, I need to consciously drum those things up, because that is what gives me hope that he's going to do it again. It's gratitude and hope. Hope is what does the work. You need hope for the future. Hope is the flame that warms our hearts, but gratitude is the spark that produces the hope, okay? Now, one final thought. It could be, for some of you, that your present pain is so great that you're like, I don't remember my mouth being filled with laughter. As I look to the past, I can't conjure anything right now. There are times when the darkness of a present moment blinds us to the kindness and mercy of God that he's already come. You might not remember it. And so let me suggest this. While each one of us is living his own story, her own story, There's little micro things of God's provision to you. There's also a bigger story. There's a grander story, a greater story. And if you're at a place where you just can't filter through your little story right now, it doesn't feel little, it looms too big. I might draw your attention, though, to the greater story. And it's framed exactly the same way. Here's how Paul puts it. If you go to Romans 8, I'll put it on screen. Go to Romans 8:32. Listen to this. He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? What did he do in the past? He gave us his son. This is how Paul likes this language. He uses the same thing in Galatians. He says, the life I live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Jesus gave himself for us. The Father gave his Son for us. And we have appropriately gratitude for the past. He's done it. It's over. It's been accomplished, and we're grateful. But look at the second part of this thing. What does that gratitude produce? Future hope. How will he who did this thing in the past not also graciously give us in the future all things? That's why I haven't mentioned it yet, but this is an Advent season sermon, because we live right here in the present between what he has done and what he will do. We are grateful for Christmas. We remember that he has come, and it fills us with hope and eagerness for what he will do when he comes the second time, right? We live right here. Now, what we're going to do, as you in your own mind, as you see what he has done, as it shapes your expectation of what he will do, I want you to think, begin to get ready for this. We're going to do this in a few minutes. I want you to think about what he has done and what he will do for you. And we're going to let that frame our time in prayer this morning. We always take time together to pray. We usually say we're going to have time of thanksgiving, praise. We're going to have time of requests. And I hope that you can see how neatly that fits into this paradigm, right? So when we move in, and it's not immediately, but in a few minutes, we're going to move into a time of prayer. And when we do, I want you to think, I want to thank him. I want to anchor my heart in gratitude, not for what he is, not for his attributes, as we often do, but what he has done for you. We're going to have a time of prayer in that. And then I want you to, okay, Lord, this is what I'm expecting. This is what I'm hoping. This is what I'm asking for. This is what I need you to do in the future, okay? So you can think about that. What we're going to do right now is give you a chance to come up and just have a little bit of private time with him. It might be that there's something you need to pray about, and you want to live in those categories privately. We got some time set aside for you. We're going to sing a song. Let the band's coming up to set us up for that. While that's going on, you can come up here. You can meet alone here at the curved rails. You can meet in the back here with folks that you can pray for. But then once we've done that, we're going to reconvene together and out loud remember what he has done and tell him what we're hoping and expecting him to do. Cool? Lord Jesus, we love you. We're grateful to you, and we thank you that you have done good things. You've done great things, and you've done great things for us. You've done great things for me. So many times you have been my provider. You've solved the problem that I could not solve. And Lord, lo and behold, I have new problems, and I need your help. Things I just don't know what to do. And so would you anchor each one of us in gratitude, reveal to us, help us remember all your many kindnesses to us, and fill us with hope and expectation for what you will do. Lord, we love you. Amen.
Would you please stand and join us in singing?
Waking up to madness, coming to my senses. You meet me in my company. You give me my portion. Though flesh and heart may fail me, your strength is there to hold me, keeping my heart steady. You are my portion. You are my